Well, I had to go through what I had to go through to get where I had to be. I had to go through what I had to go through to get where I had to be. I had to go through what I had to go through to get where I had to be. 'Cause where I had to be is right here, right here, right here, right now. See, it's always now in heaven, and it's always now in my heart. It's always now in heaven, and it's always now in my heart. You can measure it, treasure it, mark it up in hours, mark it up in days, splice it into seconds, but it's always, 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 always now. All the time. Do you have your ear to heaven? Do you have your ear to heaven? Do you have your ear to heaven? Is it the hope you find? Do you have your ear to heaven? Is it the hope you hope to find? Do you have your ear to heaven? Is it the hope you hope to find? Do you have your hope to heaven? Is it the hope you have to find? Do you have your ear to heaven? Is it the hope you hope to find? The hope you hope to find. Do you have your ear to find? Do you have your ear to find? Do you have the hope of heaven? Is it the hope you hope to find? Do you have your ear to heaven? Is Jesus on your mind? Do you think of him up on the cross, shedding his red blood? Or will you be just like those who disappeared in the flood? Everybody except for 8. See, there's something really interesting about the numeral 8. Turn it 90 degrees east or west and you end up with the mathematical symbol for infinity. Infinity. Now, what if you were aware that there are actually an infinite number of infinities available mathematically? If that doesn't blow your mind, just think about it for a minute or two. Now in John chapter 6, it tells us that we're supposed to eat the flesh of God and drink his blood. Many turned away because this was a hard saying. How can they eat the man's flesh and drink the man's blood? Well, who was the man? Wasn't the man the Word of God? Wasn't he there in the beginning with God, and without him nothing that is was ever made except by him? Well then, if he's the Word of God, surely you can eat a word, can't you? No? How do you eat a word? Do I catch it when it comes out of my mouth and then pop it back in? I don't think so. I don't think so. But what if the Word of God is the only bread we need? What did Jesus say to the devil in the wilderness? The devil said, turn these stones into bread. If you are the Son of God, you must be hungry by now. And Jesus said to him, get away from me, devil. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. So if the Word proceeds from the mouth of God, and Jesus said that he could live on it, I guess that means we can live on it too. Guess that means that we can live on it too. Back in the day, man, old man Ezekiel was hanging out. God showed him a vision of a scroll. And God said to him, Ezekiel, eat that scroll. Eat that scroll. Eat that scroll. You know what happened when old Ezekiel ate that scroll? You got to read about it for yourself. What shall it profit a rich man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Let's think about that for a minute. He leads a good life. He's a decent type of fella. Thinks he's plenty squeaky clean. He's good enough to get into heaven, he thinks. And besides, with all this money, it must be a blessing from God. Never mind the backroom deals and the payoffs and the bribery and the extortion. God must be blessing him. Now look at this man up yonder. He does a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. But you know what's going to happen soon? You'll have to work a whole day just to buy one measure of barley, and that ain't even going to satisfy you much. What are you going to do when there's so much inflation that your dollar is not even worth wiping your behind with? Just look what the Germans did about 80 years ago. Come on now. Anybody out there on the same page with me now? We hustle and we bustle and we go about our day. We're not worried about anything that there might be a better way. Night turns into day and day turns into night. We don't care because we put on the light. We don't care because we put on the light. We don't care because we put on the light. Emergency, emergency, your house is about to burn. Here comes a package, eat it. And you won't burn if you learn. Don't be a worm. Unless you're the worm in the book of Jonah. Do you know there was a worm in the book of Jonah too? Everybody thinks about this great big fish in the book of Jonah, but there was a worm. And there was a wind. And there was a weed that grew. There was a worm, a wind, and a weed. See, after Jonah got done running away from God and God bringing him back and all that, and Jonah went out there, you know the story of the fish. He goes out there, preach, people get saved all over the place, and Jonah he ain't down with any of that. No, Jonah doesn't like that at all. So when he's all said and done, it's hot out, and God causes this weed to grow up, and Jonah hangs out underneath it. Shelters him from the sun. But then before you can say lickety-split, God raises up a worm to eat the root and the weed dies. Jonah ain't digging that either. Because God appointed these things. He appointed the fish to swallow Jonah. He appointed the weed to grow. He appointed the worm to eat the weed. He appointed the wind. The wind. Oh, a lot could be said about this wind. But let's just say that the same word used in Jonah where God appoints this and that, that same word was used by Moses in Psalm 90 and verse 12. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Except that when it says teach us to number, what it's really saying is teach us to manah our days. Well, what on God's green earth does manah mean? Well, that's the same word from the book of Jonah, so it must mean something more than just a number, wouldn't you say so? I would say so. More about that later. I'm on Clematis Street right now, and I'm at a red light, so I'm just going to chill, and we'll have to catch up on all this later on.